Well, good morning, everybody. I can't really see you because the light is staring at you, but I gather you're there. So welcome, and thank you for joining us here at the British Museum. We're delighted to be able to at least meet with you, even if I can't see you, all again in person. This is the first time since 2019, for reasons which you will all be familiar. So welcome to all of you, and also to all the others who are joining on the live stream. So today is an opportunity for us to share with you some of the highlights from the past year and what we have planned for 2023 and beyond at the Fundraising Regulator. There will be an opportunity to ask questions at the end of the presentation, and some questions have already been submitted online, and we're looking forward to the traditional, fairly lively question and answer session at these events. Now, whilst the peak of the pandemic is behind us, the past year has continued to present and pose serious challenges for the charitable fundraising sector. The continuing impacts of the pandemic, the conflict in Ukraine, the cost of living crisis have had their effect across the board. And in these tough times, I think the thousands of fundraising organisations which continue to demonstrate their commitment to excellent fundraising practice and to joining with us on this work is extremely commendable. The sector and the world around it is changing at pace. I don't need to tell you that. And in September, we launched our new 5-year strategy reflecting this. We are grateful to those across the sector who contributed their expertise, helping to inform our strategic direction. Collaboration is key and is one of the themes which our new strategy has at its core, and it runs right the way through all our upcoming work. In October, we launched what is going to be a 2-year review of the Code of Fundraising Practice, having last reviewed it in 2018-2019. It's vital that the review is based on evidence and taking account of the views of those who have an interest in the outcome. So we began with a public call for information, and the feedback will underpin a wider information gathering process that will include contributions from voluntary sector partners, other regulators, and research into the public experience and expectations of charitable fundraising. Once we have developed proposals for updating the code, we will collate those and then conduct a 12-week public consultation on any potential changes in the autumn of 2023. Taking into account our plans for the future and the ways in which we want to engage with the sector and the public, we recognise that achieving these goals will be dependent on a funding increase. Having not made any change in the levy since 2016, since the fundraising regulator started, apart from adding some steps to the levy staircase, we will need to contemplate this now. So, over the past few years, nearly every charity that is eligible to contribute to the levy has done so, which provides the charity sector commitment to independent regulation. Collectively, the UK's largest charitable fundraising organisations spend about £2 billion carrying out their fundraising activities. Therefore, the cost of the levy represents about 0.1% of overall fundraising expenditure. Now, we are conscious of the pressures on charities, as well as on our own costs, which have been affected by the current economic climate. The levy review will consider both the regulator and the charity sector's changing needs. But I think when you have £2 billion spent on fundraising, it is important that that is properly regulated. We will, of course, consult widely to ensure that any increase in our levy and registration fees are both fair and proportionate, and we hope that the consultation will start in December and we will share more details before then. We're committed to being an agile and proactive regulator, ensuring that we're responsive to public needs. The charitable landscape can be confusing, and it's vital that the public, who continue to give generously, are aware of our role and how we can help them. In 2022, we commissioned research to help us measure recognition of the fundraising regulator itself and the FR badge. We found that the number of respondents aware of us has more than doubled since 2019, from less than 1 in 10 to 1 in 5. This increased awareness demonstrates the ongoing development of the organisation as it settles in as an expected and respected part of the charitable regulatory landscape. The research also shows that 73% of people would be more confident in supporting a charity displaying the badge, and 51% would be more likely to support a charity they had never heard of if it was displaying it. Now, these are overwhelmingly positive results, and they show that displaying the badge makes a real difference, and we will increase our digital marketing to ensure that as many people as possible know to look out for it to support good fundraising. This year, we will increase our public engagement work in general, with activity encompassing multi-platform consent, such as digital resources, and both online and in-person engagement. We will also build upon the successful Safer Giving campaign, which we've run in collaboration with other regulators and leaders within the sector, helping to ensure that the public can continue to give safely. I think we have an exciting year ahead of us, and the areas I've highlighted touch on just some of the things we'll be focused on. I would like to thank the fundraising sector, our regulatory counterparts, and the sector representative bodies for their support. And I hope that you will continue to engage and collaborate with us in this way in addition. I'd also like to thank fellow board and committee members, many of whom are here, and the staff team for their dedication and skill in ensuring that fundraising is being properly regulated. So I'll now hand over to our Chief Executive, Gerald Oppenheim, who will share further details of the past year of the Fundraising Regulator. Thank you very much.
Right, good morning, everyone. I'm so pleased to be able to be here live in person with so many of you this morning. It's good to be able to spend a morning at the British Museum as well, and good to have lots of people on the live stream as well. I'm going to concentrate on 4 areas of activity over the last year, and looking first at highlights from 2021 to 2022. So much has happened since we held our last live event in 2019, and whilst last year undoubtedly brought its challenges, it's pleasing to look back and see what we've achieved. As mentioned by Toby, our increased public recognition is a strong endorsement of our improved public reach. We've worked hard to engage with audiences we haven't previously accessed, and we're incredibly pleased that this is resulting not just in recognition, but that donors are better equipped to protect themselves from fraudulent or dishonest fundraising. If we turn to those charities and others that are registered with us, our increased recognition is also reflected in the sector, with registration increasing, as it says on the slide there, by 14% in the last year since the end of August 2021, and a 98% payment rate for the levy for the 3rd year in a row, and it's pretty well at the same rate this year as well. So that's a clear and strong sign of support for our regulatory model. Turning now to using how we use intelligence to inform our guidance. Events over the last few years have called for increased guidance to the public on how to give safely. Following the invasion of Ukraine, the British public were eager to help, keen to donate goods and money, in addition to other types of support. We've consistently used intelligence to inform our guidance, which means we can offer a rapid response to emerging situations like this. In this case and others, our close working relationships with stakeholders, such as other regulatory bodies, the charities and online platforms closely involved in emergency appeals, helped us update and promote our public advice on safer giving and fundraising. This has consistently proved to be a successful approach and one which we continue to hone. Safer giving messages were issued alongside another successful public fundraising appeal by the Disasters Emergency Committee following the earthquake in Turkey and Syria very recently. We've also formalised our intelligence gathering framework internally. At a monthly formal information review meeting, we assess information from our own work alongside trends and issues identified externally to target the areas of greatest concern. This allows us to establish mitigating measures to manage identified risks, manage resources, and to make recommendations to our committees and the board. To ensure that we have the resources and skills to deliver as an agile and both predictive and preemptive regulator, we've added a new role to the team, the head of proactive regulation and projects. It's a future-facing role, and once the position is filled, the post holder is going to play a key part in building on our existing success and becoming a more proactive and intelligence-led regulator. Turning now to our casework, what some might see as an unlikely measure of success is a growing number of complaints. Our caseload continues to increase year on year, which is a marker of consistent public engagement. We've also observed that we're receiving more complex complaints, which in turn results in more in-depth investigations and more than we've seen in previous years. However, we continue to close the majority of cases within 4 weeks of receipt, even though since November 2022, we've seen a 24% increase in incoming cases. So that 1056 that you see for the year ending 31 August 2022 is showing a marked increase at the moment. As flagged in our annual complaints report, which was published last autumn, fundraising activity in the past year continued to be affected by the pandemic. We saw that whilst many charities are returning to in-person fundraising, that activity has yet to get back to pre-pandemic levels. Data from the charities sampled showed an increase in complaints for some methods, but this was a proportional rise in line with increased activity. Last year, we unveiled some changes to the fundraising preference service, strengthening the service for both charities and the public. The changes were informed by an independent review, which found that the service continues to provide an important backdrop for people who may be feeling overwhelmed by contact from charities for whatever reason. People can now request that up to 10 charities stop sending them direct marketing in one online transaction, and in the past this was only 3. In addition, it's now easier for charities to identify where a suppression has been made on behalf of someone else, a key indicator in identifying potential vulnerability. FPS continues to be an effective tool for the public, with a 10% increase on suppressions since last year. But crucially, none of this harms charity fundraising, so we think we have a proper balance in the system. And we can also now let charities know, or a family can let charities know that a donor perhaps has died. And again, that helps charities manage the contacts they have. Turning now to our work with others. We've navigated internal changes. We've increased our capacity in both Wales and Northern Ireland with permanent members of staff based in both countries. We have a new board member for Northern Ireland in Lisa Caldwell as well. These new additions to the team ensure a face-to-face presence at key events in those countries and further opportunities for collaboration there. And in Scotland, we continue to work closely with colleagues on the Scotland Fundraising Adjudications panel. We've also progressed with our equality, diversity and inclusion strategy. We launched the strategy internally last year, moving recently to the second phase, which also included establishing an internal EDI project group to manage the activity. We also commissioned an external specialist consultancy to assess a sample of our HR policies, our brand, our communications, our recruitment processes to make sure that we hadn't missed anything. Their findings were positive, providing reassurance about work already done and giving us confidence to move the work on into the next phase. This progresses apace, and we recognise that as a regulator, we also have the potential to make changes that impact on the charitable fundraising sector more widely. As we move forward, we'll continue to share information and, where appropriate, seek feedback. In my closing remarks now, I'd like to also say thank you to the board, committees and the staff team, as well as those we work with, including the Chartered Institute of Fundraising, the country voluntary sector councils, the charity commissions in England and Wales and Northern Ireland, Oscar in Scotland, and all the other regulators that we work with, also DCMS and many others who give us their time to support what we do.